Everybody ready? Am I ready? Who knows? Yeah, you never know with me. Today we are going to be looking at the new Liquitex cadmium-free paints. Liquitex claims that these cadmium-free colors most accurately reflect the same as a regular cadmium paint. There's no reason to use cadmiums anymore. They've fixed it. You might have heard in the past of things like cadmium hues, which are a substitute pigment that doesn't have a heavy metal. But the issue that people can sometimes run into when using a hue in place of a cadmium is they might look straight from the tube very similar, but the mixing properties can get a little murky, especially because with the hue, there are usually multiple pigments that make up that color. And as we know, the fewer the pigments, the cleaner the color. You know that, right? You better know that. So we're looking to see if these paints actually compare closely to their original counterpart, the cadmiums. We are going to look at them straight out of the tube next to each other, see how they compare. I put this line across here just so that we can get an idea of opacity, because cadmiums are known for being quite opaque. Also, we're going to mix them a little bit and see if they mix in a similar way. We're going to be looking at the cadmiums, cadmium-frees, and seeing if we can prove it. All right, now start the song. So let's take a look at some colors. They've got cadmium red light, they've got cadmium red medium, cadmium red deep, cadmium free, cadmium yellow light, cadmium free, cadmium yellow light. It goes on and on. The first thing I'm going to do is I'll pull up these two, and we'll look at these for similarities side by side. Now, I don't know why, but as you can see off the bat, they're not off to a good start. The swatches don't line up. Now, these aren't actual paint swatches, but, you know, come on, guys, step up your game. All right, so this is the cadmium red light. This is the dangerous stuff that will kill you, or they would, so you'd be led to believe. Okay. This is cadmium-free red light. Now, I will tell you that straight from the tube, to my eye, those look pretty darn close in terms of just pigment color. This is real cadmium. This is what they call cadmium-free. We don't know what's in cadmium-free. They don't have to put it on there for some reason. You know, there's no pigment number on it, which is just, it just blows my mind. So let's just see what happens when I pull some of this down. This is the cadmium. Covers that line because it's an opaque color. Let's try the cadmium-free. Also covers, you see that really well? Just next to themselves over here. And when we say that cadmium paints are dangerous, it's really if they make contact with your skin. I think this is a good time to stop. Yeah, so as I slowly die from lead poisoning, you know what I just did? I just licked my finger with the cadmium, rubbed it. I gotta choose another finger, Jamie. Okay, thank you, Christina. So when you're using cadmium paints, I highly recommend wearing gloves, or if you have obsessive compulsive disorder, I highly recommend wearing gloves. Now that I'm gloved up, let's continue to play. We're gonna mix these in with black. Now this is a Mars black, which means it's a little bit more of a brownish color than a deep black. But it's a black nonetheless. And this is not necessarily to test for consistency of how well it mixes, but I'm curious to see if this cadmium color, which is, you know, going to be extremely opaque, and Mars black, it does not have a high tinting strength. It's not, you know, nearly as opaque as that is. Do they both get knocked down the same way when you add this? Because if this really doesn't have the same properties, it will look darker. It will look darker. I think, yeah, okay. So again, we're not looking to see for color consistency, although I would expect it, but that's not what the point of this is. It's are these cadmiums keeping their color truer to the orange than to the black. Will the black win over orange, or will orange win over black? Okay. So let me take some paint and take a little bit of that. It's like a little Halloween extravaganza. Okay, so you can definitely still tell that it's orange, and that was the cadmium color. Now let's go into the cadmium-free and see if it stays as orange as this does or not. Okay, so off the bat, it would be so nitpicky. I think they look pretty similar. I mean, again, not using the exact amounts, but just playing with paint. You could make a case that this looks a little darker, but I would say that there's margin of error there. That these have a pretty similar opacity, I think. I think that's safe to say. But none of that matters, okay? I shouldn't be cursing. None of that matters. What I really want to know is, since we already know that hues can line up pretty equally with cadmiums on their own, how will they mix? And even though I just mixed this, I mean mix, okay? So we're going to try to mix some green. This is an ultramarine blue red shade. So it's not necessarily designed to mix green, but it's okay. It's still a blue. And what do I got? Cadmium yellow light and cadmium-free yellow light. Okay, again from the two, they look very similar. Cadmium-free, or ultramarine blue. All right, let's see if they mix similar shades of green. And now I'm going to go into the cadmium-free and mix it with the blue and see what happens. No, these don't look like they're matching up to me. And I don't know if it's margin of error or if it's the paint, but I think that what we should do is try mixing different colors. What we're going to do is we're going to mix the cadmium red light into the cadmium yellow light and compare that to the cadmium free red light and the cadmium free yellow light and see if we can prove it. That's the name of the game, right? Okay. I'm going to do my best to put out even amounts of paint. I'm not, I'm only human. I can barely put my pants on. Okay, here's our cadmiums. And you know something? I just want to make a note of this. Cadmium paints are made with, I guess, heavy metals is what. And they have a weight to them. You know, when you pick up a tube of paint that's not cadmium versus a tube that it has a weight. This means nothing in terms of like how it works, but it has a similar like heavy, weight to it that a cadmium color would. I don't know why that matters. It probably doesn't. It just makes me feel like I'm using the real thing, I guess. Now, I don't want to overmix these, but let's just see if we can, okay, so cadmiums, right? That is like spot on. That is really close. All right, let me hold that up. I mean, first of all, I don't know how many artists out there can say like, oh, they were using cadmium red there in the first place, but when the paints behave so similarly, and if you are extremely worried about not only your health but saving money because cadmiums are expensive, Cadmium-free seems to be a pretty darn good replacement. And honestly, if I was to be painting with acrylics, I would use the cadmium-free because there's no reason to risk this. And again, cadmiums are usually one of the more expensive pigments. I think that this does a good job kind of proving proof of concept. I'm curious about mixing with white. Yeah, I'm gonna try mixing a little bit of white with cadmium orange, fancy pants, because we don't have enough orange going on over here. And this orange looks a little yellow ochreish to me, but what do I know? I'm just a doctor. Okay. Again, straight out of the tube. Cadmium, cadmium-free, they look very similar. Let's mix in some white. Now these are both pretty powerful pigments, okay? The cadmium and titanium white both are very opaque. So if the cadmium-free was not the same strength as the cadmium, it wouldn't lighten as much or darken as much. Hold on, I have to use my brain, and that's always difficult. We'll be right back. Okay, so if this becomes a lot lighter than that, that's a sign that the paint is not necessarily as opaque or has the same properties, similar mixing properties, as the cadmium, because these are both supposed to be, and since we're using titanium white as the same color across the board, it's going to show just how closely or far apart these two are. That's like spot on. That's really impressive. Again, margin of error in there, but I think that if you were to use these cadmium-free paints, I think that you'd be pretty happy with them. I mean, artists have used hues for years and years, and hues are great, but this paint is really designed to mimic in all aspects, not just the color laid down flat, but in terms of mixing and opacity, the real deal cadmium. So I'm going to call this proved. I think that that's pretty darn accurate. Okay, so Ming wants to know, why would somebody, he saw what we just did, he thought it looked pretty dead on, why would somebody even bother with real cadmiums? There's a very simple answer to that. Tradition. There are still some cinematographers that prefer to shoot on film and not digital. It's like asking a musician, why don't they just use a synthesizer? There's something about using the original stuff. I mean, the old masters did not have cadmium-free paints. No, they died early and they painted well. So if you want to have that kind of official experience, I think that's the reason why. And also, this is just available in their acrylics. I don't know if there's a cadmium-free oil paint coming, so that's another reason you paint in cadmiums, because this is just in Liquitex acrylics. This is their thing, and I think that's why they don't have to tell me what's in it. It tastes like strawberry, which is weird. So, Liquitex, good work. I like your cadmium-frees. I think they're interesting. I think that they're a good substitute for people that either A, do not want to risk using heavy metals in their art wearing gloves, or B, don't want to spend a fortune on their paint. So either way, you win. Cadmium colors, you can have cadmium-free colors, you can have cadmium hue colors, and you can have me on Instagram at Mike Not Jerry. Did that even work? Or you can follow me along on our various shenanigans. I think shenanigans is a good word of what is up there. Follow me on Instagram, see a little bit behind the scenes, what's going on with me, what's going on with the studio, what's going on with our videos. Okay, now I'm just dawdling, so go ahead and watch any one of our other videos, but nothing else. Do you not think that I proved it? I want you to tell me below. What did you think? Do you think they were similar enough? Do you think that it wasn't enough? Tell me what you hate about me.
Careful.
I could take it, maybe. I don't know. I think there's only been like, I don't know, 6 or 7 comments that have made me cry for a couple days.